welcome to the fifth episode of Homiltea. I am your host, Sean.
And I'm Blake.
And like I said, it's the fifth episode. This is pretty crazy. We didn't think we would make it to 5 episodes, and you guys are eating it up, and we love it. We've gotten a lot of tremendous support, and of course, you get the tremendous backlash, but every single positive note eliminates 5 negative ones. So thank you guys for commenting and supporting us and texting us on the side. We really do appreciate it. We read every single
Yeah, yeah.
comment, and it motivates us to do the next one. As promised, we are going to do a fun episode since the last two were pretty controversial. But before we get into that, we got to do some disclaimers. First of all, I want to correct myself. It was not Bishop Strickland who was allegedly putting a fetus on top of the altar for a pro life protest. It was allegedly, Father Frank Pavone. He allegedly did this. Again, I do not believe that he or nor any priest has done this in protesting abortion laws because it's just sickening and it desecrates pretty much the entire church in general if a priest were to do that. But that is the correction I wanted to make. And Blake, did you
And
have one?
also, we had mentioned last episode that January 1st was supposed to be a holy day of obligation. It is actually not. So correction on that. It's not a holy day of obligation
This year, because it doesn't
this
fall
year.
on. I think it falls on like a Sunday or something like
A Monday.
a
It falls on a
Monday,
Monday.
right? And then there was a
I think also because of Christmas Eve being on a Sunday as well. I think that may have had something to do with it.
correct.
But
And we
correct me if
also
I'm wrong.
read the wrong readings. So we're actually going to skip the readings this time and we're going to get it correct for next week. But that
Yes.
leaves us, like I said, for the fun episode. We are going to be talking about Christianity and pop culture when it comes to movies, TV shows, stuff like that. Some of our favorites, some that are kind of questionable. So we can
Yeah.
honestly start out by saying probably one of the best movies of all time. In general, definitely a Christian movie is Passion of the Christ. Everybody has seen it. If you haven't seen it, you are one of the very few that hasn't. It stars Jim Caviezel, and I would definitely go and watch it if you haven't, especially around Easter time, considering it is about the
Yeah.
crucifixion of Christ. And have your subtitles on because it's now
What is it? It's set. It's not in English. It's what is it set in? What
um,
is it Arabic? The entire movie.
hold on.
It came out in
No, it's
2004.
it's it's what Jesus actually spoke.
Passion of the Christ.
Got it. It
Uh,
is Aramaic. Aramaic.
Aramaic.
Aramaic.
Aramaic.
If
Old
you've
Aramaic.
if you have ever met an Assyrian person, not a Syrian, but Assyrian, like Babylonian, all that stuff, they speak
Huh.
Aramaic. And in order to really encompass what was going on at that time, Mel Gibson, who was the executive producer, told the actors that they needed to learn Aramaic, and Jim Caviezel sold it. He killed it. He did amazing. Um, Go and watch that movie. Highly recommend. It's very biblically accurate, especially with them speaking the same language. It shows the true, uh, well, passion of the Christ during the crucifixion of him and what he went through on his way to his death.
Yeah. It's very, very graphic too,
It is. It is
which
very
I
powerful.
mean, true because that's how it was, when he was being crucified, but just be weary because it's very graphic, blood, gore, but it's a true depiction of what happened. So it is a very good movie.
Yeah,
Very, very
it
good.
is a true depiction. Another one that I like that is a true depiction is the Gospel of John. If you don't know what the Gospel of John is, it is a first of all, it's a 3 hour movie, so it's tremendously long. It is a bunch of British actors that play the disciple that play Christ, and it shows how he met a couple of them. It's all from John's point of view, but they don't reveal it until the very end. Spoiler warning. Um, but I mean, you should know that because the movie is called The Gospel of John, and it's about his life between Christ's life between the baptism from John the Baptist to actually the resurrection. Um, is it like I said? It's a 3 hour movie. It's very famous from the guy who played Jesus, saying over and over and over again in the movie, "I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth." That is probably a giveaway. There's a huge like TikTok trend where it talks about John 8:58, where it says before Abraham was born, and it like kind of pauses a little bit, lets the music rise, and then it says "I am," and then it goes into like some crazy drop. Yeah, that's where that movie's from. Okay, that's where that's from. Um, but the one problem I did have with it, I watched it recently, is that it didn't really talk about all the apostles. It talked about Simon Peter, of course, talked about John, talked about Philip and Judas, but then you have all the other apostles who kind of just appear throughout the movie. They don't really are talked about, mention their names, who they are. Of course, you see who the Virgin Mary is and who Mary Magdalene is in the movie, but again, like the other apostles, like Nathaniel, Bartholomew, all of that, you don't really get to meet them. They kind of just appear in the background. So that's like the only problem I have with that movie. But it's a great movie. But
I've
if you,
never seen this movie. I don't.
it is
I'm
on
yeah.
Prime for free. If you have Amazon Prime, it is for free. There are a
It
few
is.
movies that are on this list that are not for free, and I will tell you about that later. But Blake, go ahead and talk about one.
So the first one that kind of came to mind whenever we were brainstorming for this was this movie is actually pretty recent. It's called Father Stew. It came out in 2022, so it stars Mark Wahlberg, but it follows. It's a biographical movie, drama, whatever you want to call it. But it follows a Catholic priest by the name of Stuart Long, and basically just shows how Father Stu was living a very materialistic, like just a bad life, and then how something happened in his life to where I believe it was Mary that appeared to him, and then from that point, he like dedicated his entire life and just became a Catholic priest. Um, I believe I'm almost positive the actual priest, like in real life, he may have passed away. Um, I'm trying to see. Let me see. I'm gonna fact check myself real quick. Let me see. I'm pretty sure he did pass away.
Wasn't he
Yeah,
in
he
prison?
died. He died in June of 2014. But he was sick. He was very like he didn't have good health. But it's a pretty good movie. I mean, it's a Hollywood movie, so it's not going to be like 100% accurate, but you know, from seeing it, it is pretty good. I would probably rate it a solid, probably 6 out of 10 from me.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's worth a watch. Um,
Wasn't he in prison,
Cinematography's good.
or like it's like based around a prison or something like that?
Yeah, well, he the guy Stuart Long, he went to prison or he was in jail or something like that. Like it's just the life that he was living at the time was not very good. So something happened. I don't want to give it away, but because the movie came out recently, but
Hmm.
something happens and you know he basically turns his entire life around, and so it's pretty good.
Gotcha. Another movie that I want to talk about that actually I probably a good bit of people probably haven't seen is Risen, and it came out in 2016. Um, it is about the Roman tribune who later turns to Christ and becomes one of his disciples after the resurrection. But like a
Mm.
large portion of the movie is based around the actual crucifixion and the arresting of Jesus, and it's kind of Rome's point of view. I've always been a big like Roman Empire type guy.
This
It's
is your Roman
this is
Empire.
my Roman Empire. I really do like gladiators and all that. And then when I saw this movie, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool and interesting. And no one really talks about um, the disciples that came after Christ. Like, I'm not talking about the people who followed the saints and everything. I mean, not the saints, the actual original 12 disciples, but who came after Christ. Immediately after, and this movie really talks about it. It stars Joseph Phineas, who plays the character of Clavius. He's in The Handmaid's Tale, Hercules, Camelot. If you've seen his face, you'd recognize him. Tom Felton is in it. That is Draco Malfoy from the Harry Potter series. He plays Lucius's second-hand man, Lucius. I'm sorry, he plays Clavius' second-hand man, Lucius. And then who plays Jesus is Cliff Curtis, who was in The Meg. Um, he was in Avatar, the new one, and also Fear the Walking Dead. He's a New Zealand Maori actor. If you've ever seen The Meg, he is, well, the more New Zealand looking guy. Great Jesus. Very welcoming. Again, it's a surrender centered around the arresting and the crucifixion, resurrection of Christ. I enjoyed it because it's a side of story that not many people talk about again. Mainly people talk about the disciples and leading up to the crucifixion, or the movie is based on the crucifixion and that's it. This really does highlight what happens after, and when Jesus appears randomly to the apostles after the resurrection. So I really enjoyed it, and it was eye-opening to see someone of a different faith completely. I mean, he worshiped Mars and Venus and all of that as a Roman, and for him to just give it all up, give up his title. I mean, he was a. If you don't know what a Roman tribune is, it's like it's almost like a general or like a major in their army. So he was pretty up there in class. And he gave it all up for Christ to be a follower of him after he saw some miracles. Obviously, saw the resurrected Jesus with holes in his hands, the stigmatas that we were talking about. So I really enjoyed it. I would definitely go recommend watching it. However, this is one of the movies that you do have to pay for on Prime, which sucks. But if you ever find yourself having a few dollars and you want to go watch something new, go ahead and watch it. It gives you a different perspective on Christ and around that time.
Yeah, I feel like that's a forgotten time, like in the early church, like right after
Yeah, everybody
the
talks about,
crucifixion.
right, everybody talks about like the
Like,
life of Christ from the baptism from John the Baptist to, oh, he just got resurrected, and then where do
yeah,
we go from there? Well, this
yeah,
obviously highlights the arresting, the crucifixion, like I said, but it really does focus on that forgotten time of the very, very early church, also known as the Way.
the way. This is the way.
This is the
And
way.
if you don't know what that reference is, then you need to go do some more research.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned Stigmata, so I have to mention this movie now. We kind of briefly talked about it a couple episodes ago, but just a not really an honorable mention. Padre Pio, the movie that came out in 2022 with Shia LaBeouf. Um, it's worth a mention. Um, I know we kind of talked about it, offline, and it's an interesting movie to say the least. I personally think they have better Padre Pio movies out there, um, but this is obviously the newer version of it. I don't know. This one was just a little different for me. The storyline was all over the place. It
Mm-hmm.
was very hard to follow. Like there was no point in the movie where both of the storylines came together, which that's what I was looking for. Um, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's a very odd movie. I think the storyline with just Shia LaBeouf, like I'd say the last 5 minutes of the movie was good, but
Right.
everything else was kind of in my opinion. So I don't know. The other Padre Pio movie that is actually like pretty decent is the one that came out in 2000. Um, this one is a much better Padre Pio movie than the one that came out in 2022. So
Gotcha.
would want to mention those because I mean obviously Padre Pio, he's the man. You know, he's he's him. He is definitely him.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the biggest pioneers for praying the rosary in general in the modern age.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm gonna talk about my last one later. I do want to talk about briefly a few other movies. The Nativity Story. If you have never seen that, that is about Joseph and Mary's uh, traveling their journey to Bethlehem.
Hmm.
I usually watch it um, every Christmas. It's an older film. It was from 1979. I don't know how old. I mean, oh, okay. Well, then I've seen it a lot, but I didn't realize that Joseph was played by none other than Oscar Isaac.
Wow.
Sorry, the Nativity Story is from 2005. I guess this is the remake. This is what I watched. 2005. It's an hour and 41 minutes. Joseph is
Not
played by
bad.
Oscar Isaac. If you don't know who Oscar Isaac is, he is Moon Knight. He is, um, what's his name from Star Wars? Poe
Poe Dameron.
Dameron. He plays something else too. He's been pretty
He's a up. Well,
pretty
I think after Star Wars, he definitely blew up. I mean, he was pretty popular before that, but after
beforehand.
Star
Yeah,
Wars, he blew up even more.
he played as Spider-Man 2099 in the new Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you haven't seen that, that's him. So he plays Joseph. Keisha Castle Hughes plays Mary. I don't really know Whale Rider. Yeah, she hasn't really been in a lot of
Mm.
very known films. She's been in Game of Thrones, apparently, but I mean, there's a ton of people in Game of Thrones. Um, yeah, I enjoyed watching the Nativity Story because again, it gives another different movie. Like how we keep saying the basic movies that come out of like Hollywood or anything about Christ is always the killing of Christ. It's always about the crucifixion or the resurrection. It's never about what happens after or what came before. And this movie tells it perfectly. I love the whole um, three wise men coming at the end. It's a beautiful story, and it really shows how tense it was for them to find a place to have um, baby Jesus. Now there's another one coming out, or it probably is already out. It is a musical, um,
Hmm.
and I think it's called Journey to Bethlehem. I There's a lot of negative thoughts coming out of this movie. Not from me personally, because I don't really judge a movie until I see it. But there's a lot of negative aspects that are coming out. They're saying like they're playing them wrong, or they're disrespecting the whole Christ birth
I just didn't
because
know
of
how
a
I felt about the
musical.
musical part.
Yeah,
I
see,
think that's what
right.
I was like.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but I was like, huh. I don't think this is gonna be different.
yeah. So it has Antonio Banderas in it as King Herod, which is pretty cool because I like Antonio Banderas. However, I'd have to go see it. That is again a 2023 film called Journey to Bethlehem. It is a musical. It is not like an actual movie per se of Christ. So can't
Yeah.
give my honest opinion about it, but I will mention it as one of the newer films, alongside Padre Pio. Um, but my final Christianity and pop culture that you must see, and that I tell everybody, no matter your denomination or not, is The Chosen. And the reason why I say that is because there are Catholics, non denominationals, evangelicals, LDS, Muslims, Jews. There's even atheists that are on set for The Chosen, and it's just beautifully done. It's well respected. It is the only show that depicts the actual life of Christ, and the coming of all of the disciples. I know how I talked about in the Gospel of John, where they kind of left out a few disciples. This highlights how every single one was plucked by Christ and how they came to follow him. And many
Yeah.
different religions across the set. Like I said, you don't have to be. It's not a Catholic film. It is not a Christian film. It is just a Christ film. I mean, it's not a film. It's a series, but you get what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
nicely paced. And what's beautiful about it is it just shows the humanity of Christ. Right? It's not how we were taught in CCD, where if we steal a lemon drop, that Christ is going to send us to hell and burn us and all this other stuff, where he's like this very, very authoritative figure. Now he is, however, in The Chosen, it shows how caring he is, how human like he is. And
I like that human element in The
yes,
Chosen.
yes. And I think
It's
that's what
not
attracts
like,
a lot of people. And I think it was like the season two premiere or something like that, where they were actually showing season one to people who have never seen The Chosen before, and then they were going to show the trailer of season two to them. But it was like a bunch of atheists, non-believers. I think there was even like a Satanist in there, and they were all watching the first season of
wow.
The Chosen. And Studios, who produces it, brought them in, and they were filming it, and they were all crying. They were all crying because they could like relate to this. They don't see Jesus as a um otherworldly figure. They see him as someone who shows a lot of compassion and humanity as God, and not just someone who demands things 24/7, without first living those commandments. And I think that was very, very beautiful. And I think that's why a lot of people watch The Chosen, is because something that everybody can relate to in some way or another. And they're going
I
to come
think
out with,
that's
I think,
where a lot of TV shows. Sorry to cut you off.
no, cool.
That's where like a lot of TV shows and movies like they depict Jesus in like this like higher than thou figure, which he is, yes, but
Right.
Jesus, he was a human,
But you
like
do have to bring it down to earth
passionate.
for
Yeah, you
us to
have to bring
relate.
it down.
How are we supposed to relate to somebody that, well, isn't human? And that's what I think a
Yeah,
lot of people struggle with growing up in Christianity, is
yeah,
trying to understand how God was also man at one time.
yeah,
But The Chosen, like I said, and the guy who plays Christ is Catholic, but there, the producer, executive producer, is an evangelical. There's LDSs. There's Jews that are his disciples. There's Muslims that are that play as his disciples. Um, yeah, it's definitely a must watch,
like a melting pot almost.
and it's free. You could
Yeah,
find it on Netflix. You could find it on Amazon Prime. I think Hulu also has it. But if you want, there's an app. I think it's the Angel Studios app, where you can go and watch um, the series for free, and it's all crowd funded. So this is how
yeah,
they pay their actors. They pay everything. Um, is you can go on the app and you can select specific episodes that are coming. Like I think what is it, season 3 or season 4 that's coming? No, season 4 that's coming. I can go on there and maybe know the title of season 4, episode 2, but I haven't seen it yet. However, I can like donate like $20 so that these actors and actresses can get paid, and so they can have the film produced, which I think is pretty cool because it shows how much people support the series instead of, oh, we'll just see what happens at the box office.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Elizabeth Tabish, the one that plays Mary Magdalene, she's also Catholic,
Yes,
and she's been doing stuff with Hallow
and
too.
in Angel Studios as well. She since The Chosen, I think she starred in now four, including The Chosen, four films from Angel
Yeah,
Studios. And if you want to know anything about Angel Studios, they also produce Sound of Freedom with Jim Caviezel. So they actually
still need to
have
watch that.
a film right now in the theaters called The Shift. Haven't seen it, but it also has Elizabeth Tabish in it, and all I can say is I think it's about someone who dies and goes to purgatory, but also has some run-ins with the devil. But they don't call him the devil; they call him something else. But it's the same storyline and everything. Go watch it. Go check it out. It's in theaters right now, called The Shift. So, Blake, do you have
Nice.
another?
Yeah, the next one I want to talk about, obviously everyone knows about this one. Chronicles of Narnia. I feel like that's a pretty popular one within Christianity slash Catholic teachings. I'm sure most of our young viewers that are our age have seen Chronicles of Narnia. Um, and I mean, so that the author of the book, C.S. Lewis. Now, if you don't know who C.S. Lewis is, um, big Christian British writer. He was never like officially Catholic, but he all of his like writings and stuff like that aligned with the Catholic Church, and he was one of the biggest like apologists for Christianity and like defending the faith. Um, so he actually wrote, I think, with another author as well, Chronicles of Narnia. But Narnia is there's so many ways that you can go into this movie and see the connections with everything for Christianity. Um, like how the White Witch in Narnia is basically a symbol of Satan, and then the lion, Aslan, is Christ because he's courageous, and obviously we view lions as like a courageous animal. So it's pretty cool how you can at least get those two main themes out the movie, and then obviously like the kids, like those are like the daughters and sons of Adam.
Right.
That's representing humanity. So there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of articles online too that show this. But um, I think that's a really big one per se. Um, but on the other side of movies, obviously that what we've just been talking about, the main movies of showing Jesus and Christianity and Jesus's life and all that, but there's also a dark side to movies that are influenced by, I would say, Christianity and the Catholic Church. You have the Conjuring movies, like all of those,
The
that whole
Nun.
universe, The Nun, like all of those movies. Now, loosely based on actual events, the whole Ed Lorraine Warren thing, is it true? I don't know. But exorcisms in general, like that stuff is real. And I'm sure we could have a whole nother podcast on that, on exorcisms and all that type of stuff. Um, but the fact that those types of movies, they directly pull from what the Catholic Church teaches, because you can talk to anyone in any denomination, and if you ask them, like, okay, well, what do you need to perform an exorcism, like they're going to say a priest. Like, not just anyone can go in there and exorcise a demon. Like, you have to have a Catholic priest, and there's actually a whole different process for that, to where they have to get approval from the bishop, and there's a whole process for that. And to this day to this day I think I know who the exorcist is in our diocese. I'm not going to say who it is
Oh
because
yeah.
supposed to. but I
Hey,
think I know. I have a hunch.
we're not supposed to know. Oh.
We're not supposed to know. So
How?
every diocese has one, but we're not supposed to know. I think I know. I have a hunch.
um, Speaking of The Exorcist, Blake and I actually watched a movie months ago
Oh
together
yeah,
called The
remember
Pope's
that
Exorcist.
Pope's
This is
exorcist.
another movie that has Christianity, Catholic values in it, and it is a 2023 film. It stars Russell Crowe, and I believe it was on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that movie was it was good, but then it kind of started getting off the rails a little bit.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I would say it was an interesting movie. Is it 100% accurate to the way that an exorcism is supposed to be performed? Kinda, but um, the way that the movie portrayed it, it was like, oh, the priests are like getting attacked by the demons and all of that, but in real life, that's not what happens. So I think obviously they're gonna add their Hollywood touch to it, but um, it's an interesting movie to say the least.
Right. And yeah, I was gonna say it definitely had a bunch of Hollywood acts to it. However,
Yeah,
the basic concept of how exorcists really took off in the Catholic Church, exorcism really took off in the Catholic Church and became um, like a sought after thing. Like how we Blake just said, every diocese has an exorcist. Back then when the movie was being filmed, I mean, portrayed. I think there was like, what did it say, like 13 or 12 exorcists in the entire world or something like that, and now there's like
yeah,
well over like 260 something around the world. So and I mean it's loosely based off of true events. The guy who Russell Crowe was playing, wrote a book and everything, and he describes every single one of his exorcisms in detail of what really happened. But again, you have the fact of Hollywood kind of portraying it in a different way and taking it into something that they can sell. Uh, don't get me wrong. Exorcisms are not beautiful. They're not crazy. Um,
yeah.
they are definitely something that is not of this world. Um,
Supernatural.
However, it's not something that people should want to see. Is what I'm trying to get at.
No.
You should never want to see an exorcism. You should never really ask to hear about true events in an exorcism because it's not going to be something that your mind is going to comprehend because it's not of this world.
Yeah,
Um, but it is interesting to see how Hollywood portrays it. I mean, I love Russell Crowe. Like I was talking about in the Roman Empire, I love watching the movie Gladiator. He was fantastic in that. Uh, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of shine the light on more of kind of what's real, but at the same time, not really, instead of watching like The Nun, where some crazy demon possesses a nun or acts like a nun in a abandoned
yeah,
abbey in the middle of Romania. You know,
yeah.
um,
It's a loosely based on stuff like all of those Conjuring universe movies, you have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes.
like the probably
But
the most accurate Conjuring movie was the very first one,
yeah,
and then they
yeah,
had to sell the next series, the whole series. Okay, so just take it as
yeah.
that the first one was probably the most accurate out of them all, but
And
then they
even that
start
one you still have to take with a grain of salt.
right.
Like that,
That one you have to actually do your research. You have to act, if you really want to get into it, you have to do your research. You have to go watch films on
yeah,
like YouTube documentaries on what actually happened in the real Conjuring house to really see what it was like instead of taking Hollywood and putting it on a show. One last, I'm gonna end it on a good note instead of talking about the exorcisms. Veggie Tales.
what?
Yes, bro. If you did
What?
not, did you watch Veggie Tales?
Dude, I don't even know. I was probably like 3 years old.
Okay, so if you don't know and you
What?
were ever at Sunday school, Veggie Tales was a classic cartoon series that if you weren't doing anything in Sunday school and you had like a day off or something like that, they would just put on Veggie Tales. Larry the Cucumber.
What?
Um, what was the tomato's name? Um,
Oh no, this is bringing back memories right now. Let me see. Cast
they
Veggie
actually have
Tales.
full length episodes on YouTube for free if you ever want that.
Oh
Bob the
yeah.
Tomato, Junior
Oh
Asparagus,
yeah.
Laura Carrot, Mike
Mike
Asparagus.
Asparagus.
But there was a lot of teachings of Christ and biblical teachings in the entire show. And it was a great way as a child, very, very young, to really grasp what was going on in the Bible instead of reading an old book that had thousands and thousands of pages. So I really do enjoy the Veggie Tales. I think like the other day I kind of just pulled it up just to kind of just listen to for nostalgia purposes. Um, and I don't know, it just
Oh,
kind of like reminded me of what it was like to be a kid at like Sunday school whenever again you didn't have anything to do that day or there was no assignments and they kind of just brought in the old TV on the cart and threw in a VHS of VeggieTales.
so on the flip side of Veggie Tales, so NBC was the first um, broadcast company to air Veggie Tales. Obviously, it is based off of like Christian values in the viewpoint, and then in the mid 2000s, they pulled Veggie Tales to make it no longer faith based.
Mm,
So now it is like if obviously new stuff now that comes out, it's neutral. It's it doesn't
interesting.
push any religious point of view. This happened in to the first few episodes of the first season, 2006. Oh wait, no, yeah, like mid 2000s. Wow. So thank you for that NBC
Ruining
for ruining
VeggieTales.
Veggie Tales.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much for ruining my childhood. I really do appreciate that. But they even have like new episodes on TikTok and Instagram and uploading new videos to YouTube. So if you do want to go watch it, or if you do want to find an old episode, I'm sure it's up
Yeah,
there for
pre
free.
2006. I would recommend.
Yeah, kind of like pre Vatican II. Um,
Shade.
yeah. So obviously there's so much more that we can talk about when it comes to pop culture. Perhaps it will be like another episode of us really diving down, maybe picking apart a movie in general. Like we just pick out one like Father Stew, or maybe there's a movie upcoming that we haven't seen yet. Or if you have something that's interesting, leave it down in the comments and we can watch it together. And then on the next episode, we could pick it apart and be like, oh, well, this is true. This is a little exaggerated. This is very Hollywood. Um,
Yeah.
Perhaps we could do that. Let us know down in the comments. But we are going to jump into Sensations. Again, today is a very fun episode, but it's also a very short episode compared to the others. So, Sensations for me, since we're doing pop culture, we both picked people that are still living, but who have a huge impact on the Catholic faith and Christianity in general. And I picked Jim Caviezel. Again, Jim Caviezel was Jesus Christ in The Passion of the Christ, probably one of the most famous Christian-based movies of all time. I think it was like a high and gross film in general for a long time as well. Jim Caviezel nowadays recently starred in Sound of Freedom. If you don't know what the Sound of Freedom is, it was a movie that came out this year. It was about human trafficking, specifically children in South Africa, and he portrayed someone who the story was based on true life about getting kids out of the human trafficking ring and all that and freeing them. And he says, you know, God's children are not for sale. Um, and again, that was actually made by Angel Studios, who makes The Chosen, who makes The Shift, who's making tons and tons of more films. So go check them out if you haven't already. They have a lot of different genres coming out. I think they even have like a cartoon or something coming out in the next year, talking about like the angel Gabriel. Um, But yeah, Jim Caviezel, great actor, huge activist for the Catholic faith. He is actually going to attend, by the time this episode comes out, probably in 2 weeks or so, he's going to attend a pro-life gala near Blake and I. We might go see him. I don't know. We'll have to see how our schedule works. But Jim
Yeah.
Caviezel, great guy, great quality guy.
That's a good one. For me, obviously, kind of talked about him earlier, but have to mention him, Mark Wahlberg. You know, we've always talked about him and how influential he is in, I'd say, modern Catholicism, modern day Christianity. Um, so Mark Wahlberg, obviously very famous actor, but he is big Catholic guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not afraid to show it.
No, he's
Not
not.
at all. He is not scared to show that he is Catholic and Christian. Like, just he will he will not rub it in your face, but he will definitely show you that that is what he believes in. And kind of looking through some of his testimonials, he was on a talk show one time, and there was like I guess like a point in his life where he really started getting into his faith, and he started praying more, and then he saw like stuff happening in his life, but it wasn't stuff that was happening in his life for the betterment of his professional career, but for his actual life. So that's when he was like, all right, I'm just going to go all in on this. And now he's on Hallow. He's partnered with them. He has all these different things, and obviously, if you follow him on Instagram every Sunday, he's gonna post a video of him in front of a church
Yeah.
saying "Stay up." But yeah, Mark Wahlberg, like there's something on Hallow that I did last Lent. It was like a prayer challenge or something,
Right.
and he did. I think it was like one day a week that he would do the prayer thing or whatever. And man, he's really really good. Like whenever you have someone like that is as big as he is, and the way that he understands his faith and is able to, I guess, kind of bring it down to a more human level, and relate to people. I think that's what really makes him a good person to kind of listen to and mimic some of the stuff that he does if you want to better yourself in your faith life. And I think honestly, another honorable mention for the both of us would be Jonathan
I
Rumi,
was
just
about to
because
say it too.
we've also been
First,
talking about
yep,
him.
the first ever
So
honorable mention sensation is Jonathan Rumi.
yeah, yeah,
Again, you talked about the humanity. We talked about the humanity with the guy who plays Jesus in The Chosen. Well, that guy is Jonathan Rumi.
yeah,
He is a huge advocate for Catholic faith or Christianity in general. What really, really touched me is whenever he was actually interviewing those people that watched the entire first season of The Chosen, and that were like a bunch of mixed people. I mean, there was a Catholic in there, but they were very spiritual people, atheists, and just of different religions. People who would look at Christianity and kind of laugh or like make fun of it. Those are the type of people they pulled in. And he had a moment with one guy where he was telling him like God's calling you to have a better faith life or just a better life in general, and that guy just like started breaking down. And I think that they mentioned that Jonathan had given his contact to that guy and keeps up with him like every now and then, just to like pray for him and everything. But Jonathan Rumi is a huge Catholic. He's amazing. He helps a lot with Hallow. And Hallow, if you're
especially
listening,
for
again,
Advent.
we've mentioned you like 37 times in this
Yeah,
episode. Hit us up. Our emails are always open. Um, but he is a huge advocate for what goes on in the Christian life and why we should live Christian lives. So those are Sensation, Jim Caviezel, Mark Wahlberg, and Jonathan Rumi. That is a great cast for this.
yeah.
That's a pretty epic cast.
Imagine if they were all in one movie.
Oh my gosh, that would be unbeatable. That would be amazing, dude. Like, could you imagine if they played like the Three Wise Men or something like that? Holy cow. Holy cow. But thank you guys for watching this episode. We do
Yeah.
appreciate it. Like I said, if there's any movie or TV shows that we missed that you want us to talk about, leave it down in the comments. And if Blake and I haven't seen it, we might watch it together and do a whole episode on it. Let us know what you guys think about this episode. And we do appreciate every comment that you guys give and every share that you give. It means the most to us. I think last week we had 20 subscribers, and now we're up to 50 on YouTube. We're almost surpassing 100 on Instagram. We're doing great on every single statistics. While it's fun to keep up with that, it's the people that will text us and tell us we're doing a great job. Or now, since I've started listening to your podcast, I feel a lot more connected and understanding of faith in general, and that's why we do it. We don't really do it so we can reach 1 million subscribers and become famous and beat out Father Mike Schmitz and everything, but we do it to become, as Jesus says, fishermen of men, right?
Yep.
We discuss it so we can actually better our faith life in general, while also educating people on the other side of the screen, you guys, what's going on. So thank you guys for the support so much. It means a lot to us. This is something that we look forward to every single week, and it's now the main topic of our conversations whenever we're together. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify and Apple, hit subscribe. Follow us along for this journey. We have plenty of content to look through, whether it's memes, podcasts, or what's coming now. Little spoiler alert. I think I can say it. We're gonna have feast days spotlights in 2024. So look forward to that, and we will see you guys in the next episode. God bless.
God bless.
Stay prayed up.
Stay prayed up.